state your name and area of residence?
Caitlin Mitchell, Richland Township again. So could you further explain, so the money that is issued from the bonds, you cannot reallocate that to any capital expenditures whatsoever?
That's not what we said.
No, I know, I'm trying to clarify because I'm not sure I understand completely.
Bob, you're the expert.
Just as was stated earlier, when you're talking about bond money and tax money in the operating budget, the general fund is over here. The bond money, when you issue a bond, goes into a separate fund. It cannot be commingled. It has to be, the bonds have to be issued for a certain purpose. For instance, the high school renovation. So that money has to be in its set accounts. So you can't say, okay, well, I'm going to take that and like Paul said, cover operational, one-year operational expenses.
But I'd like to clarify, Ms. Mitchell, I think to answer specifically to your question, part of the bond sale, about $5 million of the bonds that have been sold since 2011 for the high school, I think the first, according to my history, 2010, first bond sale for the high school. Here it is 2017 for the high school. You get plan con money from the state, so you have to have that money designated for, that's been approved for plan con, which is state reimbursement, which is really small, but it's money.
Right.
It comes back to the district, that has to go toward the project. But we had $5 million of the bond money, I believe, to pay for different projects across the district, like roofing, HVAC systems in Strayer, to upgrade and fix the ones that were broken there, and other projects, fixing parking lots. So that money could be saved or spent on other capital projects at Milford Middle School, as an example.
Right.
Bring that, we don't have enough money right now that's sitting aside to bring that up to code or expanding it, but yes, it could be used for Milford. I think that's what you're after, correct?
That's right, yeah, I really wanted to understand, because I think the question was from the community is, you know, and it is difficult for a lot of people to understand why it is we're investing in so much money in certain areas, and I think that a turf field is a wonderful investment if you're not in a situation where you're in a financial crisis. So I'm trying to understand why was it decided to be spent on something such as that, rather than maybe some more investment into our facilities.
Well, one of the things you have to look at is the closing of Milford reduces the operating expenditures by a couple $1 million, $1.5 million, whereas the portion of the bond issue that is to pay for the artificial turf is only about a little over $100. So you're adding $100 to your budget to cover the cost of the artificial turf, whereas you're reducing your expenditure budget by
100,000.
Yeah, 100,000.
what?
I'm saying 100,000.
Yeah, 100,000.
100,000.
Yeah, out of $10 million.
He always drops the three zeros when he does all the money.
Times 1,000.
Yeah, so 100,000 out of $10 million in debt service compared to a couple $1 million reduced by closing. So.
Thanks for the clarification, because I think I wasn't aware of the turf field that we're planning on putting in for the practice. You're saying that's $100,000 price tag? That, I thought it was $1 million. That's why I was confused.
No, but the debt
the
service.
payment on
You pay
the bonds,
debt service over.
the debt service.
The actual cost
Yes.
is $1 million, so you're taking out $1 million mortgage to pay for it.
So let me just make this very clear. We could have designated $1 million of bond money to renovate and for facility repair, but we're choosing not to do that because it's a one-time expense for the turf field, whereas keeping the school open is going to be an ongoing expense. Is that accurate?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Mitchell. Any other public comment?
It is accurate with some other, excuse me, sir, if I may. It is accurate, the running of Milford Middle School is done through operating dollars. We could be part of the debt service, the board could designate projects like that. I believe out of the project was 3 years ago was fixing the labs in Milford Middle School. That came out of the debt, out of the bond money that we had, and that was spread across probably 5 or 6 schools to fix things, individual items in the building. That's not reoccurring, that's a one-time expense. And that's what the bond money is used for one-time expenses, and then paid out like a mortgage. By closing Milford Middle School, what you get is the annual savings of that to be spread across other programs, pay off debt.
That makes sense, except for if we plan to down the road put modulars, which will cost additional funds to taxpayers onto Strayer in the future. And I don't know if that seems to be where we're headed. Am I wrong on that?
Yes, ma'am. There is no plan right now. That's a possibility in the future.
Right.
But there's a community committee in the fall that's going to be laying out, developing all those options, and then the board will have a discussion on how that looks.
Since our plan was originally that we thought the population would decrease, but now we're rethinking that with all of the new construction coming in, I think it's going to be inevitable. And I think it's critical that it's something that you all consider and consider that versus, keeping Milford open. Are we going to wind up spending about the same amount of money to eventually have to add capacity onto other buildings and meanwhile disrupt a lot of students? So that's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Mitchell. Any other public comment?